Welcome back to Brassionomics. A lot of people are interested in making their money, and a lot of people are interested in hanging on to it for themselves or for future generations. And if you're listening and interested in all the purchasing of investment real estate or owning your business and leases, well, you better stay tuned for the next few minutes because you're about to find out all the different ways you need to take advantage of that money once you already have it. John Hugg joins us with Hugg & Associates, estate planning and doing estate planning and business transactional work, as well as succession planning and elder law. John, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well, Ben. How about you?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm great.
Good.
So, you hear these guys talking about making money in real estate and maybe saving it on a lease. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question to you is, when people start thinking about all the money that they can make, a lot of times they're coming to you to try to understand maybe some of the different taxes or tax planning, things of that nature that are going to correlate with the law on how to keep that money.
Exactly. How to keep it, how to protect it, and how to hopefully pass it on to the kids, or even if they're going to sell, say, their business or a large piece of real estate, the best way to receive those proceeds so that will continue on for generations and whatnot. So one of the things, of course, as everybody, I think nobody missed the whole fiscal cliff nonsense that we all had to live through.
Fiscal slope, John. Fiscal slope.
Whatever you want to call it. Whatever it was, it made my life a living hell in December. Trying to get everything done before December 31st because we had this $5 million per person gift tax, the ability to give away up to $5 million per person. We were all under the great fear that was going to go away, that maybe it was going to come down to $1 million or at best $3.5 million. And so if you didn't do something right away, you're going to lose this fantastic opportunity. And then, of course, here comes January 1, January 2.
A lot of happy kids who got $5 million though, huh?
Yes. There's a couple of my clients who did that, and it was
kids are like, this is awesome.
So it was fantastic for them. Of course, the way we set it up naturally.
The fiscal jump for them.
It's perfect. Of course, they can't get at it. So, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But
kind of like the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game, can't quite get there.
Can't quite get there. Yes, I was very, very upset about the trying to ice the kicker thing.
Yeah.
So. That's pretty much what we try to do. If you've got significant assets, if you've got a business, if you've got significant real estate, or a number of residential properties or whatever, what are you going to do to try to pass them on to the next generation and minimize the taxes, if you possibly can. And so one of the things that we try to do, and I guess my favorite transaction, there's a number of different ways to go about doing it, but one of the things I like doing is setting up a trust for your kids, and generally kids, grandkids, on down the line. In Washington, your trust can live for up to 150 years. And if you have enough foresight to allow the trust to be transferred to another state that has no limitations, I believe Florida has no limitations. Delaware is like 350 years. South Dakota, I don't think, has a limitation.
350 years. That's
exactly.
Longer than the country has been here. They've really, I'm curious as how they decided as that as the number. Like, all right, 300 years, not long enough. 350, that's the end.
Yeah. Well, I guess everybody is different in terms of how long they want you to be able to set up your family dynasty.
Sure.
So in Delaware, they want you to, with the DuPonts, it goes a little bit longer.
Sure.
But in Washington, it's only 150 years. So, but that's one of the things. We would set up a trust for those kids and the grandkids, and then transfer property into that trust. And so what we're doing is making a gift of as large a portion of property as we can within the gift tax limits, basically, and then
into the trust,
and then those assets get into the trust. So in a number of cases, you've got, let's say, a large commercial piece of real estate. And it's set up in its own limited liability company or its own holding company, et cetera, and you transfer ownership in the company itself, thereby transferring essentially ownership of the real estate, into the trust. And if it's income producing property, this is one of the reasons why I really like this particular strategy. If it's income producing property, which it generally is, or if it's a business, which so it's going to be generating revenue and whatnot, that money is going to go into the trust. And then what you can do is the trust can buy additional assets from the person who created the trust. So if you have...
This is why 50% of Americans don't pay taxes, isn't it?
This is exactly right.
I mean, if you set it up right, the taxes that so many people are worried about, this is really how people avoid them.
Yes, absolutely. So here's the beauty of this transaction, and I'll use some, at least from my standpoint, relatively big numbers.
Sure.
So let's say you've got a $10 million building. You gift away half of it, or just under half of it. So you still retain control and decide, and you can negotiate those leases. Yeah, 49%. So you basically give away $4.9 million. Over time, you do that today. Over time, say 10, 15 years, it's going to grow. Presumably, it's going to grow and increase in value. All of that increase in value, let's say it increases $10 million over the next, say, 15 years. That's all going to be outside of your estate. So that $10 million or $10.1 million increase under this example is not taxed to you when you die. And at 40%, which is the new estate tax rate, that's roughly $4 million in tax that you avoided simply by shifting this over.
By shifting the money over.
Yes.
And then, okay, so when you want to get money out of the trust, right? Do you pay like an income tax on it, or is it just your money? How does that work?
Well, it depends on who's doing what. If it's the children,
once again,
if it's the children who are getting some money out of it, then yes, that's income to them. But if the person who created the trust, the person who put the asset in there in the first place, is trying to get some money out of it, there's really only one way that you can do that, and that is, as I just mentioned, to buy additional assets from the original person who created the trust. So if you put the real estate in, and now you have a separate business, and you want to buy a minority interest, you want to buy 49% of that business, you just go ahead and you do a purchase and sale transaction just like you would with any third-party transaction, and promissory note comes back, secured by whatever it is that you sold, and now you're getting note payments for however many years until that note gets paid off. So it's a good way to get a stream of income coming back. And then again, any and all appreciation that the business has over the next 10 or 15 years or 20 years or whatever, again, that's outside of the value of your estate and won't be taxed either. So
interesting.
Yeah.
John Hugg joins us with Hugg & Associates. John, so this really, when you start looking at what we went through with the fiscal cliff, and you talk about business owners and investors, and business owners oftentimes freaking out about the amount of taxes they're going to pay, and this is just coming from my layman brain here. But if they go about taking some of the proper steps, they're not really paying that many more taxes. Is that kind of a fair thing to say? I mean, there's steps you can take that don't make these numbers feel so daunting.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly planning steps that you can take. I mean, in terms of just general taxes that you're going to pay on an annual basis, I'm not as familiar with all of the techniques and strategies that a full-on CPA might have to be to say, okay, you can minimize your taxes by, sticking money into this retirement vehicle or that retirement vehicle or restructuring.
But when you hear things like death tax and these type of things, that's really like you haven't done your planning tax.
Really,
in some ways.
Yeah, it truly is, because you can generally, I mean, depending on the size of the estate. I mean,
sure.
You only have $10 million per couple to really shield you. But if you leverage it properly, and there are ways to get even more bang for the buck that can be very complex, but you can certainly use them and give away more. And then what you do with what you still have left, when you still let's say you've got a $50 million estate and you've given away maybe $25 million, so you've still got $15 million that's exposed, or $25 million or whatever that is exposed. You are going to pay tax, but the reality is you'll probably, what you should be doing is setting up even different trusts, buying life insurance, and having that pay off to those trusts when you when you pass away, and then that would then pay that tax.
I will see you later, John. You can we can work on that all day long. Okay, so there's so many different ways that people can still succeed, and understanding that the government does have rules that you can follow and still be successful. At the beginning of the show, and I asked everybody else this question, a lot of people in sports, as we've seen over the last few years, have cheated in order to get ahead. There's a lot of ways to still win the tax game, it sounds like, without cheating, though, that a lot of people maybe just don't realize.
True.
That you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I think you have to be willing to do some homework, plan early. One of the things about these strategies is they generally take a long time to actually play out, and because there are a lot of moving parts. And then one of the biggest thing is that business owners and investors who have spent a lifetime acquiring all this stuff, they don't really want to give up any control. So it does take a long time to plan. But if you plan early enough and whatnot. Another thing now, too, is with interest rates really low, when you do these promissory notes, it's a very good time to do that because the interest rates are so low and you only have to pay back a certain amount of interest, which, again, creates more leverage with the transaction that you're doing and you get a better benefit. But, again, if you're planning early and if you're willing to do the work and meet with the right professionals and whatnot, you can certainly use the rules to your benefit without cheating.
Yeah, no steroids in the trust accounts there. John, thanks so much for joining us. We got to go to break. We'll continue the conversation right after these messages.